Hello everyone, welcome to the Green Man for now my second video on the Words of Radiance, because I've just read part 2 of this edition of the Words of Radiance, which is the second part of the novel in paperback form, and this is part 3, or this consists of part 3, Deadly, part 4, The Approach, and part 5, Wins the Light. And this chapter in this story, I shouldn't call it chapter rather, this book, this part of Words of Radiance, it's kind of, to me, I suppose the way of seeing this is basically the second half of the Words of Radiance novel, and it really furthers the character arcs here and provides some payoffs towards the end as well. I won't give away major spoilers where I can avoid them, but there were some really good payoffs in this particular part of the Stormlight Archive series. The Kaladin stuff, the Kaladin character here, you really see that develops very well. He has been a hero in much of this story to date, but we are presented with, I think, the sort of naive, the less politically aware part of Kaladin that, in his involvement in this plot with Moash, where they are plotting to murder King Elhokar. We see this really coming to the fore in this part of the story, and I think Sanderson does fantastic work with presenting to us Kaladin's inner conflict about this throughout, and how he is working off other characters in trying to come to a decision about whether he really wants to be part of this, assassination of the king. And we see, changes of mind throughout just this book alone. I think to begin with, it seems like, after he's been imprisoned because he threatened Amaram, the High Lord Amaram, his mood about the king and his opinion of the king changes a bit. He hates the fact he's been imprisoned by the king, who he thinks is a weak king and he's incompetent. And as a result, I think Kaladin develops a bit more of a hatred and a change of opinion, which leads to him lightening his opposition to Moash and the others plotting to assassinate the king, which makes him complicit in this plot and partial to it. And then we later see, of course, more development, and I won't spoil what finally happens. But Kaladin, there's obviously this conflict here with whether or not he wants to be involved in the assassination of the king. I think it's really good the way this is staged, and each of the build-ups towards the final, the climax of this book almost, with this whole chapter or segment of this story involving, those characters, Kaladin's loyalties and his conflicted feeling about those loyalties, really, really good and highlighted very well. Of course, we see more as well of two characters now, Kaladin and Shallan, are drawn closer together in this part of the story when they are falling into a chasm. Neither dies, and we see their, obviously the side of the fact they've both, kind of got these special powers, but also we come to know that the two, having hated each other before, actually start to quite like each other. And I think it gets interesting. You start to wonder whether might we see a love triangle of some sort, because obviously Shallan's very much tied to Adolin. Adolin also really likes Shallan. Kaladin, I start to sense that he's starting to quite like Shallan as well. So there's obviously, for me, I don't know whether this develops in a later book of the series, but feels like there could be potentially a love triangle there. Don't know. I honestly haven't looked at anything online yet. I don't know whether that's going to happen or if it's just me sort of, suggesting, but it feels like, was Sanderson sowing a bit of a seed there? I'm not sure. It seems like he might have been, but I will find out, I'm sure, soon enough on that point as well. See more on the Dalinar and Amaram side of things, and as Dalinar starts to, as he's grown so close to, I think, to Kaladin, he starts to sort of, take more of what Kaladin says and believes him more, and because of their close relationship, I think it's starting to affect how he sees Amaram, and Spooky grows suspicious of him. So we also see that part of the story develop nicely here as well, and a nice payoff in that aspect. There's so much here that's really good as well. The duel at the very beginning of not of all of Words of Radiance, but just this second part of Words of Radiance. I love the duel bit at the start, and Adeline is tricked into having to fight more than just Relis. He has to fight, 3 or 4 different guys, I think, and he ends up getting Kaladin's help, of course, and that draws Kaladin also closer to Adeline. So I think what we see in this book in particular is a really good developing of relationships, and that's the strength for me of Words of Radiance, perhaps as a whole, which the first book, The Way of Kings, also did well. I think Sanderson is a really good developer of relationships, and his realisation of characters is always very, very strong. And I saw that in his writing of Wheel of Time, particularly in The Gathering Storm, how he brought characters together, wonderfully developed their differences, and then the coming together of those differences. He seems to be a master of that. And I do like, obviously, the epic fantasy concepts here, and the ideas that he's putting. Obviously, we're finding out more about the Voidbringers, more about their civilization, and the secrets of the Shattered Plains as this story has developed. So I'm really looking forward to reading the next novel of this series, and I, as ever, can't wait to share my thoughts on that next book. So what did you think of the Words of Radiance book, both parts if you have the 2 editions like I have, feel free to share your thoughts on that. As always, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe. I do videos as well on a lot about music and album reviews, as well as sci-fi, fantasy and horror too. So I hope you all have great weekends. See you next time.